Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third panel of the Frum Women's Insight panel. My name is Rena Reiser, and I'm so glad you're here joining us either live or in the recording. I live in Carmiel, a city in northern Israel, and I facilitate embodied dance sessions and mind-body focusing sessions. And the whole purpose of it is to help women connect to themselves, their femininity, and to really create space inside of themselves for Hashem Shefa to flow into our lives, as we create all kinds of blocks that block us from being able to have that. And so through my work, we really help open up the different blocks that are there and create that change from the inside out. So today in our panel, our topic is how to manage NOSH on Purim. And before we introduce our panelists and have them introduce themselves and dive into the different questions that came in, I like to start off with an attunement for us to check in with ourselves and see what's present inside of us, see what space we want to clear and create for ourselves to be able to be here, to be present, to kind of set an intention for ourselves about what we want to gain from today. And so I invite you to just take a few deep breaths, starting with a few breaths to create that transition from whatever you were doing before we got started today, whatever you were working on, whatever you were busy with, and just allowing yourself to have that transition, to create that transition, starting with your breath. And when you feel like you've connected to your breath, bringing some attention to your body and how your body is present today, whatever you're sitting on, whatever's supporting you, whatever you're reclining on, lying on, letting your body just settle into that a little bit more. Feeling that support, feeling that connection. And asking yourself the question, what is it that I want to get out from today? What is it that I'm hoping to gain? Is it something small, something big? Whatever it is, just staying with that intention, that idea for a moment. Because this intention will help you as our panelists answer the questions. This will help you hear the insights that you particularly need to hear today. The things that are going to make a difference for you in your life to help you move forward. So staying with that for just a moment longer. You could write it down if you'd like. And so now let's get started. I'm going to spotlight all of our panelists. Give me a moment here. And there you are. Okay. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, panelists. So I'd like you each to take a minute to introduce yourselves. And you can say whatever you'd like in a minute. And of course, this is just an introduction. People will get to know you more as you share your answers to the questions. So just as an initial getting to know you, let's start alphabetically by, I was going to say first names or last names, but it turns out that Esti, you win for both. So
I win.
Why don't you start?
Hi, everyone. First of all, Rena, thank you for having me. My name is Esti Asher. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. Baruch Hashem, I am also a wife and a mommy. I write a monthly column for Wellspring Magazine. I have a virtual private practice where I work with women on the phone or via video call, depending on their preference. I also have a very gentle and positive and self-loving, supportive approach where I share clear, credible, and inspiring nutrition information. I absolutely love working with women because it's so important for us to take care of ourselves, just for ourselves, but also when we take care of ourselves, we can then better take care of others and be more efficient with the many roles we play as women and what we do. So thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you for being here. Okay. Gila.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gila Glassberg. Thank you for having me, Rena. It's so nice to be here. I am a registered dietitian, and I am also a certified intuitive eating counselor. I live in Woodmere, New York. I'm also a wife and a mommy. And I also have a virtual private practice. And yeah, I really, my goal is to help women heal their relationship with food, to ultimately heal their relationship with themselves. Rena really got me started on this journey. So thank you, Rena. And yeah, I love like helping women like learn how they're using food to sort of like cover up other issues in their life. And by doing so, they really sort of like learn what their blocks are and learn like what their like vulnerable points are, and they're able to really start to heal their relationship with themselves. So that's what I do.
Thanks, Gila. Okay, Yaffi.
Well, I can share the sentiment also with Gila that, Rena, you were the one who introduced me to this particular philosophy, and I am eternally grateful. I am Yaffi Lvova, registered dietitian nutritionist. I own Baby Bloom Nutrition in Chandler, Arizona. It is beautiful and sunny out here, and you should all come visit. I do personal counseling, small group counseling, feeding therapy, where last night we busted out some creme brulee torches. And I teach a topic cooking class for kids ages 2 through 6. I write and I do public speaking on intuitive eating and health at every size and responsive feeding. And I like connecting with people and helping make their nutrition comfortable.
Okay, amazing. So we have quite a lineup here of dietitians. So now, let's jump in. So we started with Esti, then we went Gila, Yaffi. So now I'm going to start with Gila, Yaffi, Esti, and then we'll keep kind of going like that in this circle. We'll start with a different person each time. So Gila, you're up first to answer this first question. Okay. And I'll give you 4 minutes to answer the question. Wow. So keep an eye on the time, but I'll also give you a signal when we're getting to the end of time. The end of the time. Oh my gosh.
End of time.
I hope so. We should get there soon. Okay. First question is, okay, there is tons of unhealthy food around on Purim, coupled together with a lack of schedule. How can we make sure to eat healthy food, especially as in Yerushalayim, it's on Friday?
Okay, so great question. Okay, so I was thinking about the panel before we started, and I guess I was really thinking about what I posted on Instagram last year, which is like, first and foremost, what I like to tell moms before Purim is like to remember that Purim's one day out of 365 days. So I find myself like reposting that around Yantiv time anyways, because there's lots of holidays that come up. It's not just Purim, but Purim is just really, if you want to put it into perspective, it's really just one day. It's a chaotic day. It's a crazy day. So the eating, the food situation, everything is chaotic. That's number one. Number two, I think I really tried to like move away from the terminology healthy versus unhealthy food, which is like kind of like a newer thing that I've been like, I've been doing some supervision with Jessica Setnick and Evelyn Tribole like over the last few months. And like, I remember Evelyn saying to me, like, even like their research shows that like labeling foods healthy and unhealthy. Now, I think that creates another whole problem because like we don't know how to label foods. Like I remember asking Jessica, so if not healthy and unhealthy, like how do you label foods? Like she's like, when I was raising my kids, I would say like, are you hungry? Like you want a half a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or you want 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? So it's a little hard to figure out the exact wording, and I could totally validate that. Like I know I find myself being like, well, you need to have a healthy snack before dinner, or be like, well, you need to have a fruit snack. Well, you need to have, like, trying to figure that out is definitely something that I work on with my clients to see what works in their home. And again, like, every family is different, every home is different, every child is different, really. But even just that tiny point of, like, it's one day out of 365, and really no foods are healthy or unhealthy. But from a self-care perspective, which I've also spoken about many times before, Purim and any Yantif, is there has to be like a self-care plan. So if you know, like, in Israel, it's going to be on Friday. Here in America, it's going to be on Thursday. I'm already thinking, today is Wednesday, a week before Tanis Esther. I'm already thinking, what am I eating? What are my kids eating? What am I serving? That doesn't mean that they're going to be eating it or I'm going to be eating it, but it means, like, I have somewhat of a plan. Am I packing? Am I doing Shalach Manos this year? Like, am I traveling around doing Shalach Manos? Does that work for me? That's like a whole new thing for a lot of women. Like, when I first got married, it was like, whatever my husband wants to do, it's Purim. Now, like, we discuss it, like, how are we going to manage the day? Like, if I need a nap during the day, am I allowed to take a nap? Like, where does that fit with your schedule? Do I want to cook food for the kids, or do I want to, are we doing like cereal and milk and smoothies that I buy from, like the pre-made smoothies, things like that. Like, I would have my list of foods that are like really easy to prepare, have some nutritional, all foods have nutritional content, but I feel like good about my kids eating that nutritional content, plus all the nosh. I'm happy for them to eat the nosh. And, I know, Yaffi, we've discussed this many times, like, it's so much more important that the children feel comfortable and safe around the food. Like you said, comfortable nutrition, or what did you say? Like nurturing or something, like, what was the word?
I think I said eat comfortably.
Comfortable.
I wanted to say
Right.
eat, but I think I said eat comfortably.
Like, those families that, like, you see them at the Purim meal and the mother's like, this used to be me, like, oh my gosh, how much candy are you eating? And the kid feels it, and they're either like binging on the candy, hiding the candy, feeling really good about the attention they're getting from the candy, feeling really bad about the attention. You just wanna, the most important thing is really the relationship, and that's creating that power struggle. So again, like, just layer upon layer of, like, it's one day out of 365 days. What is your self-care plan? Are you categorizing food as healthy, unhealthy, bad, good? And it's really important that you have that self-care plan, that you kind of know what you're giving the kids or offering the kids, and that you're feeling a sense of calm. Okay, I'm good.
Thank you. Okay, Yaffi.
Oh, I'm weighing in on the same question.
Oh yeah, you want me to say it again?
Oh no, I'm good with that. I really like everything that Gila said, so I'm just going to take it in a slightly different direction and discuss priorities and how you know if the food isn't the priority as far as where you're putting your stress and where you're putting your attention. Where is that attention going to go, right? So the thing is that Purim, we know that food is a really important part of the holiday. It's proactive in a way that it's not as proactive in our other holidays. And we know that as Jews, our holidays are very food centric. We have a lot of specific, meaningful food, and it ties in with all of those holidays. But Purim is unique in the way that we connect with food, in the way that we are sent out of our houses to deliver food to other people. It's really part of the big meaning. So rather than stressing about the food, put your energy into looking at what's important. What do you want to pass along about this holiday? And Gila mentioned the relationship. That's exactly it. It's the relationship between the child and the holiday, and the child and their family. So if you keep those in mind, then every decision that you make and every obstacle that comes up over the holiday, you can just remember it like it's a mission statement for a business plan. My goal is preserving the relationship with my child and my child's relationship with the tradition / holidays / events. And then you'll know where to go with it, with any single situation. It reminds me of when my kids were sent home with the whole pandemic situation, and I was home with COVID and they were home, and I'm supposed to help them memorize the multiplication tables. And I just finally sent an email to the teacher saying, I am sick. They are not sick. They are home because I am sick. I have to preserve my relationship with them. I can't be sick and in charge of their education. We are ditching the educational component for a moment so I can preserve my relationship as their mother. And that's what you're doing here. You're preserving your relationship with them as the parent and reinforcing that trust and reinforcing the relationship between the child and the culture, the religion, the faith, the community, by building that up and giving your excitement to that rather than worrying about the bites that make it to their belly.
Okay, you have a little bit more time if you want to take it, or you can rest for now and
I
come
know,
back
I
later.
feel like it ended naturally. I don't know.
Can I get her minute?
Yeah, let's give it to
Sure.
Esti so we can
Thank
do with
you.
my minute. I'll borrow
Yes,
it
we
back
will
from
be
another question.
excellent. So 5 minutes, Esti, go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm like sitting here smiling ear to ear because first of all, I think it's kol hakavod to Rina for having a panel on nutrition and having dietitians on. I'm nodding and smiling and agreeing with Gila and Yaffi because as dietitians, we have a very like flexible, laid back, realistic, and practical approach. And I'm so proud of us and how we represent ourselves as dietitians, because there's this like food police or sometimes this like very strict perception that people have, and it's so not. So I totally agree and echo their
RD day
words.
today.
What?
Today is RD day.
Yeah, is
So
it?
what a great day.
Oh,
Wow,
I planned it like that.
Happy
kidding.
National Registered Dietitian Day. Okay, I will jump right in. I don't want to distract anymore, but that's awesome. Okay, so I totally agree. I want to reiterate what Gila and Yaffi said. A few things that I would add and maybe overlap is that, first of all, I try to stay away from the terms of healthy or unhealthy. Usually I talk about how foods are helpful to our body or maybe not as helpful. So really that's a lot of work and just reframing, but something to have in mind as mommies to try to keep that in mind. We want to be very careful how we speak about food. A very practical tip when it comes to Purim and trying to, stay on track with the choices that our kids are making is to at least start off with a consistent, somewhat wholesome breakfast, whether that's something that, it doesn't need to be you're sitting there and like, cooking something over the stove, even if it's a yogurt and granola or, cereal and milk, really just so that they have something in their system before the day actually starts. I would also say it sounds like there can be a lot of stress that mothers go through on the day of Purim. So I would advise mothers to be more flexible and laid back. And again, remember, it's just one day. And the kids will pick up on the way that we're feeling. And if we're stressed out, it's not good for anybody. And I think also it is helpful to, if you have food out and accessible that you feel you're more comfortable with them eating as an option, let's say, a vegetable platter with dips or a make your own granola and, yogurt parfait bar, something that they have as an option so that if they want to eat that, then they can and they will, and you'll probably be surprised with how much they eat. But also then when the Shalach Manos comes and the Nosh comes, they're not grabbing at it because they're so hungry. And when it's such a busy day, sometimes we forget to feed ourselves or our children, and they're really just hungry. So those are some tips that I would keep in mind. And to remember that you're helping create and build their memories of Purim, and Purim Nosh is just part of it. So you have to think about what you're comfortable with. But it's good to think in advance and prepare yourself and be flexible and enjoy the day because it's a really special day.
I would just like to add to that I love that you said veggie tray, because we like to take all of the minuscule responsibility onto ourselves. Like you don't have to chop all the stuff. You can go buy a party veggie tray at the store, even if there's no party. You can.
Excellent idea. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Let's see. Okay, there's so many, there's a lot of overlap with them, but okay, so let's go with it. We spoke a lot about kids. I'm going to do another couple kids questions. I'm debating which one to go with first. Let's do it this one. I'm so torn. And Yaffi, you're going to start, please. I'm so torn. Should I let my kids eat what they want and they'll naturally learn that eating too much junk just makes them feel gross? or should I put a limit on the amount that they eat? It's just 1 day per year.
Yeah, it's just 1 day per year. And I feel like whoever wrote the question knows the answer with their gut instinct. And you know what? That's why we take probiotics, for that gut instinct. Just kidding. No research. Yeah, it's 1 day. And the response to that is often, well, this is 1 day, and Rosh Hashanah is 1 day, or well, 2 days, and da 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 da. You know, each of them is 1 day. Yes. And even if we add them all together, it still doesn't outweigh the rest of the year and the consistent messages that they're getting. It's difficult to tell parents to trust their kids and to trust when their kids are hungry and full, because that requires knowledge of trust in one's body. And we're told by society in so many ways to not trust ourselves. So yeah, I'd like to tell you, trust your child. Your child is going to know when they're hungry and when they're full. And if they overeat and get sick, that is also a valuable experience. Mm-hmm. It's going to be challenging if you're in a situation where you don't trust your own body, that you feel like you as the adult need strict rules in order to guide your eating. So if you're in that kind of situation and you want to provide your kid with the best experience possible, just fake it. It's not ideal. And in the perfect situation, you'll also be in contact with someone who can help you feel more comfortable in your food journey. But in the meantime, grin, grit your teeth, and remember how delicious that nosh is. And maybe sit down with your kids and enjoy it with them too, because it is only 1 day. But negative messages that happen on this day will be heavier, and positive messages that happen on this day could stick for a lifetime too. So focus on bringing food to smiles and enjoy the nosh with your kids, because you know what? There's a reason they like it. It's probably freaking delicious.
Hey, thank you.
I keep finishing early. Do you have a prompt or something?
What do you say?
You're giving me the 4 minutes, but I'm used to the 60 seconds of Instagram.
Oh, here.
Any prompts?
So you've been trained.
I've been trained by social media. Yeah. Condense the message.
We don't know what kind of impact it's having on our lives, and now it's coming out.
Yeah. You know what? Okay. The Fluffernutter conundrum. Okay. I loved Fluffernutters when I was a kid. I loved them. And I wouldn't give it to my kids for a while because it's Fluffernutter, but oh my God, it's Fluffernutter. I need to make Fluffernutter and sit down with my kids and enjoy it. They need to know that I was once a kid and that kid is also still in me, because that's a whole way to see the world. I was asked recently, I talk a lot about playing with food as a way to expose, but what about the adult who's a selective eater and wants to expand their food acceptance? I was asked that. What do adults do? You know what? We spend too much time being adults. Be kids for a second and play with your food. Sit down and have a Fluffernutter. Think about the most delicious thing that you remember as a kid and recreate it for your kids. And don't think about the nutritional breakdown of food reductionism. Just think about the experience that you had that you want to recreate for your kids. This is generational. If you want your kids to be able to enjoy all of the holidays and all of the fun events, sit down and enjoy it with them. Okay, now I'm really done though, because
Good job. Thank you, Yaffi. Okay, Esti, your turn.
Okay, I think I remember the question. It's asking about, it's just 1 day per year, pretty much giving the dietitian stamp of approval that it's okay to let your kids just eat the nosh.
I'm gonna let you interpret it however you want.
No, but I'm remembering the right thing, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. I love the question, and I love how we care so much about our children, and everybody who's here live or watching the recording is here because they genuinely care about taking care of themselves, about taking care of their children, and I just call a kavod to everybody, because our time is precious and we can be doing other things or not doing other things and relaxing. So I think that's really amazing. Okay, so again, I agree with what Yaffi said. And I think to take it a little bit of a step further is an idea that I have. I actually have a webinar that I present to parents of schools and the parent body of a school. And it's called How to Speak with Your Children About Nutrition, Health, and Body Image. And one of the things that I speak about is what happens when you have, you know, the Shabbos parties or Purim and these scenarios where your kids are exposed to a lot of nosh. And one of the suggestions that I give is, for example, Purim is a prime example, is to give each child their own big Ziploc bag or their own container, something that has their name on it. It's designated as theirs. And they know that whatever shalach manos that comes in for themselves, whatever nosh that they have, that's theirs already or was designated that they can have, they can set it aside and they know that it's safe, it's theirs, it's not going to get pounced on by somebody else. So that right away will at least give them the peace of mind that I don't have to grab and eat this before, you know, my brother does, because it's safe and it's mine. It'll also help teach them to listen to their body and think, do I really want this now, or am I just going to be the fastest to eat it? It gives them that autonomy. It gives them that responsibility. They're really tuning in with their body. And then they can be, you know, think about, do they want to have it now? Do they want to save it for later? But at least they know that it's safe and it's there. So I love that idea. And Purim is a great time to do that. So that's also like a more fair playing field to set the stage for your children, because, you know, they could have a lot going on in their mind, but to know that they have it set aside is very valuable. I also have a mantra that I share in that webinar that I love for myself. So I love to share it with people. It's called, I say it all the time, and now not as much because I feel like I've trained myself more, but it's the sooner they eat it, the sooner it's done, or the sooner, if you're speaking to them, the sooner you eat it, the sooner it's done. And that's to help teach them and remind them that this is food. Once we eat it, if we eat it really quickly, it's going to be gone. And to just warn them, not saying, it's not telling them don't eat it, but it's a warning that just keep in mind, you know, you can pace yourself and enjoy each bite, or it'll just be gone. And for yourself, as the mommy giving that mantra, I can also talk to myself like, okay, the sooner they eat it, the sooner it's done. They'll have that, you know, they'll stuff their face and whatever, they'll have that sugar high and crash, and then it's over, rip off the Band-Aid. So I love that. And I find that very helpful on both ends. And then, like Yaffi said, also, it's a great teaching opportunity for your children that if they end up not feeling so great, take that time and use that as an opportunity to help teach them to listen to their body and ask them, oh my gosh, your stomach hurts. Oh, that doesn't feel good. Why do you think that happened? And let them think about it and give you that answer. And then if you want to take it even further, you can say, you know, oh, that's really hard. What do you think we can do next time so you don't feel like this? And then they can give you their ideas, and that gets the wheels turning also, because this is, you know, an excellent opportunity for teaching opportunities. And we want to be more open and flexible and, you know, laid back, relaxed versus uptight and, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're eating that. So those are just a few different thoughts that came to mind when I heard the question.
Thank you, Esti. Gila, we haven't heard you in a while.
I'm really sorry. I have a little bit of a cold. Could you just repeat the question just so I want to answer it like.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm so torn. Should I let my kids eat what they want and they'll naturally learn that eating too much junk makes them feel gross? Or should I put a limit on the amount that they eat? It's just 1 day per year.
Okay. So, thank you. So, I love what Esti and Yaffi said. I will just add that I guess because Yaffi and I just had a long conversation about division of responsibility versus responsive feeding. And I gave a class to teachers of kids 0 to 3 in Borough Park, like teaching them about division of responsibility and responsive feeding. And I think that the question is a really good question. And it's also because we're talking a lot about like flexibility and being, you know, reasonable and flexible and realistic, we have to know kind of like where your kids are holding in terms of, have you been doing the division of responsibility yet, or responsive feeding? How old are your kids, right? So my oldest is 9. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So the way that I only started really doing division of responsibility maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So my oldest, who's 9 now, we had like a lot of power struggles around food because I didn't really know about division of responsibility. I wasn't implementing it. So I think it's important for people to know, like, just also be patient with yourself, because if you're like just starting right now, learning about like, you know, you're in charge of the what, where, and when of feeding, and the child decides how much and if any, and then it's Purim, they might be, you know, like going to town on the Purim food, and that might be really, really scary. Like probably not a good time to, just like totally let them eat whatever they want, right? I'm putting that in quotes. So, so basically, I would just say that I guess what I'm really trying to say is that every family and every kid is different, and like I would go into Purim with an open mind, meaning I love the idea that Esti just gave, like making sure the kids know, like, you have your own candy and you have access to your own candy, and go, coupling that with the last question, that you're assuming that you are feeding them some sort of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which like might not even happen. Like them eating like 3 shalach manoses at a time might be an indicator, oh my gosh, I forgot to feed them, right? Like that might happen. That might happen to me. Like I'm planning, but I don't know necessarily what's going to happen on Purim, because Purim is so chaotic, going back to that. So, but I will say that, my oldest is 9 now. And I said, like, when we started this, it was 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember on a Hanukkah, her coming home from a Hanukkah party and her saying, Mommy, I really don't feel well. My stomach really hurts. And I asked her, oh, like I was trying to be like curious, what did you eat? Maybe something hurt your stomach. And she said, I ate 2 donuts and 2 latkes. And I was like, yeah, sometimes food that's fried really hurts my stomach also. So fast forward to now, like she'll ask me, like, do you think that is this fried? Do you think it's going to hurt my stomach? And we've sort of like worked together, and obviously not always. Sometimes it's too busy for her to come find me and ask me, or she's not thinking about it, right? I don't want her to have anxiety over it, but I'll say, you know what, why don't you have 1 and see how you feel? Or why don't you have half and see how you feel? And I really think that that's probably the most important part of this whole thing, is that like every parent, every child, every day, every situation is different, and you have the tools. Maybe some of you don't really know about division of responsibility or responsive feeding. I actually, like, Yaffi has a lot of information on her website. I have a podcast episode with Elisheva Wiener on like the ins and outs of division of responsibility. So I'm not going to go into it so much in depth here, but I just think that like that comes back to that relationship, right? Like, am I feeling guilty? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling overwhelmed? So like going back to the ideas, like Esti said, making sure that they have their own bag of candy, making sure that we're not stressing about it as much as we can, making sure that we're trying to feed them throughout the day. And also, okay, I'm done. I think I overspoke.
You did great. This is great.
Okay,
So
thanks.
I
Okay, great.
did it right at time. Amazing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, ladies. I love how like you feed off each other, and then there's more and more that just comes out. Okay.
Yeah. Can I also say I absolutely love Esti's idea. I'm thinking about it after
You're
she
so
was explaining.
sweet. Thank you.
It like I thought about it. We did that last year by accident. And as you were talking about it, I just remembered how it played out and how it played out so perfectly. And it didn't occur to me until you actually said it. So thanks.
Sure.
That's a great idea.
I love this. I love when like we learn from each other.
I know. I want to
It's
like
great.
group hug right now. This is really fun. Okay, Rena, you can continue your show.
Okay, so Esti, you're gonna start with this one, and then we'll go to Gila and then Yaffi. Okay. All right. Trading NOSH for money. Is that right? Do you agree? Disagree? What message is that giving? Is it healthy? I'm never totally at peace with it, but I see people doing it all the time.
Okay. First of all, I drank water before we recorded. I made a bracha, so just putting that out there. Okay, I have different thoughts and feelings as a mommy about money. I don't want to weigh in specifically about money, if that's okay. I'm going to twist it a little bit because I don't know if people can share their thoughts about kids and money. I'm not so comfortable with it, but I'm not that expert. But going back to that slide and that webinar that I was talking about, when I talk about the Ziploc bag, another tool that I offer to parents is the concept of offering some kind of trade system. So whether you're trading the NOSH for foods that are more helpful to your body, or if you go to the dollar store and stock up on different like tchotchke things, and you can offer, figure out how you want to trade it, but that you can have those items to trade for. But what I think is really, really important for parents to know is that if they do a trade system, you should be super neutral about it. There should be no pressure, no guilt. You can explain to them that, the dollar store tchotchke or whatever might last a little longer than the candy. I don't know how long it would last, those things, but but it should last at least longer than the candy. So you can put it out there and help educate your child on making that informed decision. So a trade system for different things like that, and letting them know that, the candy or nosh, once you eat it, it's gone. And this cute little thing from the dollar store will last some amount of time. But it should be very, very neutral, no pressure, no hard feelings, no judgment. So I think that that's important for kids to know, and a great option to have. I actually had one of my kids, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, one of my kids was reflecting on how last year he got a soda in one of his personal shalach manos, and he wanted to know what's going to happen if he gets that soda. And I told him, this was at bedtime, we're all relaxed. And I said, if you want to drink the soda, then you can drink the soda. But if you want, we can trade it for, in Israel, we have something called fruit water, like a watered down fruit drink. We can trade it for that, or a different type of drink that he might want to choose. So giving your child options to know that they can trade it. It's not an all or nothing, but at the same time that it should be judgment free. And also really remembering that our job as parents is to help teach them and empower them and train them for life. And, they're going to be exposed to nosh more than just Purim, especially as they get older. So to give them the tools and the awareness and like the little, nuggets of how will you feel after that can of soda, or maybe you want to trade it for, a different type of drink, or maybe you want to trade it for, a pack of gel pens or whatever. Is good to just have them like sit on that and marinate in it for potentially future decisions.
Hey, thank you, Esti. Gila.
Okay, so I just want to understand this question. I don't really understand. The mom is saying that the kids get like a lot of candy from their shalach manos, and they're like selling it. What does that mean?
So like some parents will give their kids money, let's say,
Okay.
instead of them eating the nosh. They'll say,
Let's
I'll
say
pay
like
you, like
a
I'll give you
$1
like
for
traded
a
this.
can of soda.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
I think that's what she's referring to.
Like the mom will give the money, not like a friend will
I think
exchange
so,
money.
yeah.
Yeah. I actually never heard this question before. So what's coming to mind for me is like, I have a family member who told me that she heard this like great idea from someone that like they have this like candy tray at home, and if kids get candy at school or like candy from some sort of reward system, they put it in the tray. When they fill up the tray, they donate the candy and they go on a trip. Is that like similar? Like that's what
Yeah, but there's some sort of reward instead of eating the nosh.
So I don't really like love that idea, because I really feel like the message is like you give up the nosh and you get a reward. So I don't really like love that idea. I think like that's probably giving the kid like a really like, it kind of reminds me of this family member. They're like really like praising them for giving up the nosh. Like I don't really think that's such a great message to give to kids personally. I like the idea of like, when people ask me, do you think it's okay to reward my kids with food? And I know like that's debatable. But again, like I like to have that like flexible, practical approach. Like I think that you could do both. Like sometimes you might want to reward them with food, and sometimes you might want to reward them with gel pens. I think that's totally normal. Or you might want to even offer both and see which one they pick, just so that you're again neutralizing the fact that sometimes we eat even when we're not hungry, and we just eat because it tastes good, right? And that could be okay. And like we don't do that all the time, and we have other things that make us feel good, and we have other things that make us feel rewarded. So I just feel like if that's exactly like the reason why they're doing it, like paying them so that they don't eat the nosh, I personally am not so comfortable with that approach.
So what would you do instead?
If let's say what, like my kid asked me,
let's say. Yeah. Why not?
Oh, I really don't think I would say like save it for when you're in the mood, or like give it to your friend. Like, I don't think I would want them to figure out what they want to do with it. You know, they could
Mhm.
sell it if they want. I'm not rewarding them for not eating it.
So let me turn the question, maybe I'll ask it differently. What if your kid came home with a pencil from school? They got it as a prize, and they said they wanted to trade it in with you for something else. What would you do?
I don't know. It depends. Like, it kind of depends. Like,
Friends.
yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you don't like the pencil. Like, do I have anything else of equal value that I want to trade them for? Like, I don't know. Like, like I never really had that with my kids, but like, I don't think I just wouldn't want to reward a child or an adult for not eating something. Maybe if there was like a very specific situation where like my child's very impulsive, or I even had a client that was very impulsive and they were working on their impulsivity in general, not just with food. Like, I have a negative emotion, I grabbed the chocolate and they told me I waited 5 minutes, I would say, well, that's great. But if they would say I waited 5 minutes because chocolate is terrible, I wouldn't want to reward that. I
So
wouldn't
it
want
comes
to
back to intention.
reinforce that. What do you say?
Comes back to intention.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks. Anything else you
Sure.
want to add? Last few seconds.
I just think that's like it's like a very complex question. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what message, like maybe some parent would say that's not the message I'm giving them by paying them for it. But like, I think maybe not. You're right. Maybe if you're very clear, like, I'm not rewarding you for this. I just like, you don't want the chocolate bar and you'd rather have $1, like, okay, but like, that's probably not what's
Right.
going
Or
on.
instead of going to the store and paying $1, I'll pay you that $1.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that's like neutral. That has nothing to
Very
do with
neutral.
rewarding
Mhm.
food. Right.
It's also how often this occurs.
Right. Right. It's a really interesting question. I've never personally heard it. So I really probably should think about it a little bit more. But I'm just saying, from a rewarding not eating something perspective, that's kind of like how I'm feeling about it.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on the spot and going with it anyway. All right, Yaffi, let's hear what you have to say.
I actually have a lot of thoughts on this because I come from a background where a family where money was really important. And that was the love language. Love language was money and gifts. And that's how you support each other. And that's how you communicate. And the gifts you give people are really important. And you should remember the value of the gifts people give you so you can reciprocate appropriately. And it drove me crazy. And I'm really careful about that with my kids. It's the same way how if you come from a background of a lot of dieting and you suddenly see like, oh, I don't have to stress over these thoughts. And I've come to this place with money that's like, that's not the center of my life. I don't have to see it that way. So I'm really careful with how I'm teaching my kids about money, because I want to be sure to not pass on that kind of preoccupation that's how you define yourself and that's how you define your relationships with people. So I've thought about this as much as I've thought about food in some ways. And when I'm teaching parents about how to be at the table, we teach them to not create food hierarchies. And the reason behind that is that when you create a food hierarchy, for example, finish all your broccoli and you can have dessert. Oh, I made my, okay. So this is the bottom of the hierarchy is the broccoli and the top is the dessert. So you're teaching the child, don't like broccoli. Dessert is better than broccoli. So if we shift that around and put money at the top as the reward, now you're saying food bad, money good. And is that really what you want to say? Gila's right. This is a very complex question, but it boils down to some pretty fundamental basics. I mean, the first is, where does that end? Esti brought up the idea of the frequency of this. How much money is your child going to accumulate? And what are their plans with that? If you think that this trade is within the values of your family, then it is fine to say, hey, so you think that this dollar is more valuable than that chocolate bar. Can you tell me, what are your plans? That's neutral. And if you take a trip to the store together to pick something out and you make an event out of it, that's taking this concept and using it in a positive way. But if your child is accumulating money because they have this idea that money is the be all and end all, and that they're going to decide to miss out on important experiences like delicious food experiences in order to accumulate money, then that's really a message you want to run away from, right? That's as bad as the diet message. We want our kids to be able to approach the world in a curious way. And when we put these charges on their appetite by regulating their nutrition, micromanaging their nutrition, we take away from that. And when we put this charge on money by putting it at the top of the hierarchy, we take away from that too. We want our kids to be able to interact intuitively with a lot of this stuff. And by paying a child to choose to not eat something or to put it in their bag that has their name on it, we're telling them, like, I'm paying you to not eat. Money is more important than food. You're micromanaging that appetite by putting another factor, you're putting a boulder in front of the blind by interfering with that appetite, by introducing a monetary factor. That's exactly what we want to stay away from. So that's what I got to say about that.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. My super sensitive side is kicking in. Rena knows I'm very sensitive. I just want to, on behalf of all of us, we know that even if somebody is giving over this message, it's totally unintentional. This is just what can happen.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I know that that's a given, but we all know that, whoever asked this question and whoever might trade money for food, they're doing it out of love and with good intentions, even if it might have a negative outcome. So we know that, and there's no judgment, and we know that we're all here with the same goal to, raise happy and healthy children and happy and healthy cells and all good positive things.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And while that was there unsaid, it's always much better to say that out front, just because, people do have associations with nutrition professionals in general being like judgmental and bullying. So it's always best to get that out front. Thank you so much, Esti, for bringing that up.
Of course.
And I'm going to add to that as well, that no matter what you hear from us, we're doing our best in our lives, and things might not work out in our own lives all the time. Our advice does not work 100% of the time, even in our own lives. And that's part of the further compassion that we have. There's reality, and you're going to make snap decisions in reality, and it's not going to make you a worse parent, because you know what? We're human. And if you have to say to your kid, I'm sorry about how I handled that, that's not how I meant that to go. I'm a human, and sometimes I mess up too. You know what? That's okay too. All of these are learning. There is space for mistakes, and mistakes can even come out to be a benefit. So definitely 100% compassion and realistic perspective.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. We should have you ladies lead a panel on compassion. Okay, let's go to the next question. Gila, you'll start with this one. How can I limit my kids' NOSH intake when I sneak it when no one's looking? I feel like a hypocrite.
Yeah. So I guess I will go back to what Esti and Yaffi were just saying about, like, of course, literally no judgment, of course. But that, I guess that question speaks to a bigger issue that this mom is struggling with, right? Like, if someone were to ask me that, like a private client were to ask me that, I would say, like, okay, so like, what are we unpacking here today? Like, why are you sneaking food? Why do you feel the need to be sneaking food? And like, probably the best thing that this mom could be doing is working on their own relationship with food, right? So like, if kids see us sneak food or they don't see us sneak food, they kind of absorb like how we feel about things, right? So like, if we feel really badly about our bodies and we feel like we should never be allowed to eat ice cream or be allowed to eat carbs or be allowed to eat candy or all the things that I hear in my office all the time, And we're trying to create like this healthy environment in our home where like all foods can fit, right? And all body sizes are good. But we don't really feel that way about ourselves. We're sort of passing on that message to our kid, whether we're trying to or not, which again, no judgment and no shame, just reality is that like, I'll say this to moms all the time when they call me with an issue with one of their kids. And I say like, well, are you going to continue dieting? Like, are you going to continue restricting? And they say, yes, but I don't want that for my kid. I say, this is going to be like really hard for me to work with your kid if like they're going to continue to see you restricting. So, like, I really think that the most important step here is to figure out like, why are you sneaking food? Why do you feel like you need to sneak food? Are you ready to make peace with food? Are you ready to allow all foods to fit? Are you ready to go down that journey? So I guess that's like the bigger, that would be like my question back to the mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's all I have to say
Okay.
about that. Yeah.
All
Which
right.
order? Am I next?
Yaffi.
Okay.
Yaffi's next.
Okay, good, because I'm going to build on top of what Gila said. Like, what is the question, really? And I stuck on that word snuck. Like, if I'm sneaking food, and I would ask this person if you could consider the difference between sneaking and just eating it. Tell me what the difference is. Describe to me what the difference is between sneaking and eating when you say you're sneaking food. And then I would reflect on how this has worked in my life, thinking back to the unintentional, Esti's advice that I unintentionally followed a year prior. And my kids have snack bags. Like we call it their secret stash, but we talk about it, so it's not secret, but it's just more fun to have that label, right? Because labels can make things more fun, like the label forbidden makes things a lot more fun. So when we instead label those bags with their names and they have ownership, taking into account, kids' personalities and family values and safety issues, my kids have their secret stash, so to speak, in their rooms. And I even walked in on the little one this morning, shoving a Kit Kat in his face. They've had these full bags of candy for months. And because they have ownership of it and they do have 100% access to it, it's not gone yet. And it's really crazy to think that all three of my kids have big bags of candy that really don't look like they've been much touched in months, but it's because they have that access. And what that's going to play out like as they get older is they just don't see food as all that exciting, which means they're less likely to turn to it for comfort. But if they do, it's okay. And they're more likely to seek a lot of sensory input and a lot of dramatic experience in other ways. So I mean, if they end up skydiving, that's probably my fault too. Did I get away from the question? What was
But that's okay.
Where did we start initially?
What did you say?
Where did we start initially?
What's the question?
Yeah. I got to get back to the question.
How can I limit my kids' NOSH intake when I sneak it when no one's looking? I feel like a hypocrite.
Right. So I've got the two-prong advice. Number one, consider your relationship. As Gila mentioned, consider what sneaking versus eating is. Consider why you feel like a hypocrite. And then think about how you can give more safe, appropriate access to the child. And that hits the whole shebang right there. But I'm sure Esti will have something amazing to add that I haven't considered.
Oh, I appreciate your faith in me. I agree with Gila and Yaffi. This is really so fun. First of all, I really feel for this mom. I think that this is, first of all, to acknowledge the fact that this is what she's experiencing and try to work with it and not pass it on to her kids, and to just be very real and honest with herself is something that's very hard to do. even when you're submitting an anonymous question, it's very hard to do that. And then to hear feedback and just to be in that situation. So I'm sending a lot of love and just like praiseworthy words and feelings, because I think that, that's really hard to do. And it shows that this is something, again, that she finds very valuable, because she wants to work on it. So I think that it's very hard and it's not easy. And, I don't spend much time talking about like diet culture or, how society affects the way that we see food or eat our food. But clearly we go through a lot throughout our lives that make us, make the food choices that we do and feel the way we feel about those food choices. So it's very hard to feel like that. But at the same time, the fact that you recognize that this is something that you do not want to pass on to your children is showing that you're also striving for that for yourself. So I think you already know that you want to work on yourself and the way that you are with food. We are all human and we all, eat nosh, whether we consider it sneaking or not. So that's very normal. I would say that when we talk about nosh and kids and families, there's no one size fits all. So as much information and guidance as Gila, Yaffi, and I will give, you still have to do your own, thinking about what you want to do within your own home and to just be well educated and empowered when you make those decisions. But I would say also to use your own experience to be more empathetic to your kids. So if they do want to be eating that nosh and they do want to be, whether they're sneaking it or just, eating it in front of you, to instead of jumping on them and saying, oh my gosh, how come you're eating XYZ? To really take a step back and realize I eat that too. And I have that craving for it also. And to just be there with your kids and work on it together, whether they realize that that's something that you're struggling with or not. So to be empathetic. And I would say also, I think Gila was mentioning this also, to be very careful about how you refer to the food, how you act around the food, how you talk about the food, because if you feel like you're sneaking something, somebody who is in that scenario, probably not this person who asked the question, but very often we use words like a food is bad or poison or garbage, or I'm a cheater, or really negative, like harmful language. So we want to be careful to not use those words. If that might be something that we might have a tendency to do if we're in this scenario. So to really, work on yourself, and whether you're using your kids as a motivation to work on yourself, or, you just want to fake it till you make it around your kids, I think that can be helpful for both you and your children. But again, to be, relaxed, and maybe your standards of what you think is appropriate for the amount of nosh for kids to have, maybe it could be a little more loose. Maybe, speaking with a dietitian or another mommy that you trust and respect to see what they do in their house can give you a better understanding of, what might be, an appropriate standard and healthy to have for the household.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So either I probably miscalculated. So there's still 2 more questions left, but we don't have time for 2 full questions. So what I'm going to do is they're very similar. I mean, they're very different, but there is some overlap. So I'm going to read those 2 questions together, and we'll finish off with these questions. So I think we're starting with Yaffi, right? So let me read the 2 questions. Question 1, I still struggle with the onslaught of nosh in my house on Purim. It gets me every year. I'm sure this is a big question, but how can I enjoy the nosh without going overboard? Question 1. Question 2, in the past, I've thrown out a lot of the extra nosh in the garbage because neither me or the kids can resist having it in the house. Is that because we have no self-control? I feel like some people just aren't wired to have self-control, and it's not fair to have it there as a temptation. It's human instinct to want to eat when you're hungry, and if you're hungry and there's nosh, it's as if the bechira goes out the window. What do you think?
Oh, that's a lot. So I have an hour to answer, right? Okay.
I'll give you your minute back.
I'm just joking. Okay, I'm going to answer the second one first, because the issue of self-discipline. I don't believe that self-discipline has a place when we're talking about nutrition. I'll put an asterisk next to that because there's probably some way that it's appropriate that someone's going to bring up. But on the whole, self-discipline is like the house guest that will not leave in the conversation about nutrition. We are given a guidebook when we're born. It's our appetite. It communicates factors that we have knowledge of and factors that we have not discovered yet in absorption and digestion, how the body works. And if we can listen to those signals with food and with other areas of our lives, then it's not going to be a concern that there's so much. We don't need self-discipline to regulate our appetite. We need to go the other way. We need self-discipline to avoid the dieting message. We need self-discipline to remember that Hashem made us and Hashem gave us these cues. And while maybe Hashem also made Atkins, it's a little bit more of like skipping stone path, right? So we're just gonna go back to the direct message, the one that Hashem just like directly downloaded into the motherboard. Yeah, okay. That's our guide. Now to go back to the first question, sometimes as, you know, I can speak as a mother, as me, I can say that the idea of going to a desert island and hanging out on a beach with cocktails and a stack of really good books sounds amazing, right? Amazing. But how long would that really sound amazing? If you think about it in practical terms and you actually imagine yourself on that island, at what point is that too much and you have to get back to reality or you're going to lose your mind? That's the same thing. That's the same thing with food. We don't want the same experience all the time. That's why we like different flavors. We like pizza and we like ice cream. We like crunchy and we like creamy. We like cold and we like hot. We like different experiences. And each of those different experiences relates to its own set of nutrition, which is, you know, a different lecture. But we can trust that same body to tell us when to stop. And it's only when the mind starts getting involved and saying, you should stop, you should stop, you should stop, that the belly, like a teenager, says, oh, really? That's what's going on. So if we can get the mind out of it and just involve the space between, you know, this and here, and then like the mind is residual, the mind just gets the enjoyment part, that's the ideal way to relate to food. And when you can relate in that manner, you're not going to feel like you're going to go overboard. It's not sneaking, it's eating. It's just interacting with food and enjoying the experience. And that's how we get the self-discipline, which just turns out to be intuition and trust.
Okay. Thank you, Yaffi. Esti.
Who's next?
Esti.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's hard for me to think which way we're going, so thank you. Okay, so there are two different parts of the question. They're similar, two different questions. So I'll try to put in some sense, some 2 cents, add to what Yaffi said. Okay, so about the concept of enjoying without going overboard, there was a reference to both the mother and her children. So I think it's important for us to realize that sometimes it's hard for us to swallow, to realize that we really can't control our kids. So I think, you know, to think about what to do and how to, you know, make it so that they don't have so much nosh, that can be a much bigger conversation and a much, you know, not something that you can just do in one day. So I personally am going to just focus on what the mother maybe could do about, you know, preventing herself from maybe going overboard. I think one thing that she can think about is kind of think backwards. So think about, you know, it's Motzi Purim. Is that a thing? It's after Purim, you're finished with the Seuda, you know, the 25 hours or however long went by like so quickly. It's a whirlwind. It's hard to realize that it's already over. How do you want to feel about how that day went? I mean, you can think about how you want to feel physically, you know, going back to how Gila's daughter felt after the Hanukkah party. So how you want to feel physically is one thing. Do you want to feel, you know, if you're referring to the nosh and the self-control, But also I feel like so many times we get so distracted by the food and the nosh and, running around giving shalach manos, which Megillah, reading am I going to go to? If I need a babysitter, how is that going to work? What time is the Purim Suda starting? What are we serving? And there's so much going on, so much flying. And it's important for us to really step back and realize what an incredibly powerful day Purim is. And there's so many things beyond the food. While the food is so connected, there's Mishloach Manos, there's a Seuda, that it is so connected, as Yaffi said before, so connected to the holiday. That's a big part. But it's a huge day for tefillah. Like, how many times we don't want to get, hyper focused on food, and then, we missed out potentially on an opportunity to dive in, even if it's, 5 minutes of quiet that we have, or, in between Shalach Manos runs or whatever. I think it's really important for us, to think about what we want to accomplish in that day also from a spiritual level and beyond the food. And then that can help us, kind of zoom out and not be so hyper focused on, controlling ourselves. At the same time, I think it's good to be flexible and understanding with yourself, to try to tune into your body's cues. If you're hungry or not, to feed yourself and your children a wholesome breakfast. That's going down to the bottom, the second question of, it's hard to have self-control when, you're so busy and you're hungry. Something like that was the question. So if you have that wholesome breakfast, or any breakfast, or if you have that veggie platter, whether you prepared it yourself or you bought it in the store, or, crackers, like whole grain granola bars, or just something more wholesome that they can eat, then, like, full circle, going back to the beginning of our panel, then they won't feel like they have to grab, and maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised with yourself and your children of how they are responding when the nosh is coming in. So that's what I was thinking. And also to reiterate the concept that Hashem gave us taste buds for a reason. And we're supposed to enjoy our food, and whether it's a fluffer nutter like what Yaffi loves, or something else that we all love, we're supposed to enjoy our food, and we're supposed to eat it, enjoy it, but then move on and not be so hyper focused and self-critical of ourselves or our children.
Amazing. Thank you. Gila.
Yeah, so just again, great answers from Yaffi and Esti, loved it. I'll try to add something. But I guess because I was listening to your answers and they were so good, what was like speaking to me the most is like how we're really trying to shift our relationship, our whole family's relationship with food, to like a positive, beautiful experience. Like we just said, like, yeah, the holiday is so much about the food. And so many of us, probably everyone on here, is so afraid of the food, right? We have this fear. Like the reason why you came, the reason why the panel was created is because like a big scary part of Purim is all the nosh, not just for our kids, but for ourselves, right? And I guess like one of my goals for myself, for my kids, for my clients is that like food is beautiful, food is nourishing, food is holiday, food is connecting, food is all those positive, beautiful things. Like Yaffi said, like that sensory experience of like, we like hot and we like cold and we like crunchy, we like smooth, like that's all very beautiful, right? And I want everyone to feel that way about food. I want everyone to know that like food has that like powerful force. Like we have like on Shabbos, where people say we're able to eat more because we have like our extra neshama, right? Did I make that up? No, I didn't make that up. So basically I just sort of want to like, I guess like probably one of like the biggest things that I would want people to go into Purim feeling is like, there's a reason why Hashem uses food as part of our mitzvos, right? So I totally understand the fear. And I will just say like, this is like the higher part of me speaking. And then like the more like human part of me. And for sure, like many years ago, trying to implement division of responsibility into my own home, like there was a lot of fear that came with Purim and food. But a big part of it is I think like the whole mindset shift of like the Nosh is supposed to enhance Purim, the connectedness, the fact that we're exchanging Shalach Manos, right? Like I would want to try to focus more on that. And like Yaffi was saying, like it's not something that like just by me saying you will have, but the whole concept of intuitive eating and division of responsibility and health at every size is that once you're working through that, there really isn't so much like self-discipline. I would say there's self-discipline to notice, am I using food to cope? Am I using food for another reason? Am I like unhappy with my relationship with food? Am I totally eating mindlessly? Like, am I lacking self-care and I'm using food as my self-care? That might be a part of like the self-discipline, but I understand why people do throw away the food. But also like Yaffi was saying about like being on a beach and like having a cocktail and just like no one around you, like, yeah, that sounds awesome. But like, that would probably get really, really lonely and boring after just like a few days. So like, it's kind of the same thing with food. Like, we do want to move the food off the pedestal and be like, this is amazing. My house is filled with candy and really good food and whatever. And like by day, like if you feel safe around that food and that food doesn't carry guilt and it doesn't carry shame and you have been able to make peace with food, by day 2, 3, 4, 5, it's not that exciting. And like, I hope that for everybody. And I'm thinking about it in my own home. Like, we have lots of food and we dump out all the food and everyone picks their chocolate and whatever. And like, some things go in the garbage, some things go to my neighbor, some things go to my cleaning lady, some things were like, oh, these are great for snacks for school. And just like to neutralize it, like, great, these foods are like here and Pesach's coming soon and some of it's going to go in the garbage. And like, I just feel like the whole concept of like feeling safe and comfortable and even positive towards the food is like really the most important part.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to do 2 more things. I'm going to tell you the second one first, and then I'm going to tell you the first one after. After we do the first thing, I'd like you to share with everybody where they can find you, if you have a website or social media or whatever it is, contact information, so people can get in touch with you. So that'll be thing number 2. But thing number 1 is my favorite part of the panel, and that is that I ask each panelist to do something which sounds crazy, and that is to tell our listeners why they should work with the other 2 panelists and to zero in on the qualities that they have, what they have to offer. Because look, you're all dietitians, and so technically you should be all in competition with each other because you're all registered dietitians and anyone can work with any of you, right? But there's something that Hashem put into you that makes you unique and what you have to bring to the world. And as Frum Jews, we know that our parnasa is designated for us from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, and nobody can take that away from us. And so this is an invitation to really show Hashem that we recognize that we're not in competition with each other and that people should work with these other people because, and here are some reasons. And so whoever wants to start can start. I don't want to put anyone under the, yeah, Esti, okay.
Sorry, do you want to go first? You're good? I'll go. First of all, I had so much fun. I think so highly of Gila and Yaffi, and I'm so happy to like officially meet you guys. Gila, we have overlapped in different parts of our, we know a lot of overlapping people, and we just started, speaking with each other, and I think you're just amazing and so knowledgeable, and I love how you use so many personal examples and you really identify with your audience, and you're clearly really know what you're talking about and such an expert. And I think that whatever I hear from you, whatever I read from you, I think it's really awesome and helpful. And Yaffi, I think that you're just so fun, and your excitement and your smile is contagious. And I also love how you bring these personal examples and make it very real and tangible and relatable for people to be able to follow in an unintimidating way.
Thank you.
I love this. And I'll start off by saying that you should work with Rena, because anyone who comes up with this question is like obviously someone who can help you to see silver linings and to recognize the beauty in your life and how to direct your life to have your power best shine forth. I mean, it's just so obvious with this one question. Okay, I'll start with Esti, because I met Esti today. I'm just, it's so wonderfully refreshing to meet other professionals who take this practical and compassionate approach. And Esti obviously does that. You have a lot of knowledge about the psychology behind the feeding relationship, and you're very into asking why something's happening rather than just slapping a band-aid on it. And that's like, I am sure that Esti's clients greatly benefit from that farsighted and compassionate approach. Yeah. So that's why I share with Esti. Gila I've known for a number of years now, which is so weird. And I have to say, Gila is down to earth and very personable and very relatable. And everything that she advises has had a lot of consideration behind it, a lot of thought. Gila is extremely intentional in the way she structures her business and the way that she deals with people. And as someone who's fairly reactive and impulsive, I admire that about Gila, and that's why her colleagues her colleagues benefit from that. Yeah, her clients benefit from that perspective as well.
So nice. Thanks, guys. Okay, so thank you both for your kind words. It's so nice. It's so hard to like sit and like hear someone talk about you, but I enjoyed it. But I want to say the same thing that you said, Yaffi, about Rena. Like, actually, if anyone here has followed me, you know that I write on my bedroom wall, and I write things that I want to remember. And I have on my wall, Hashem has all the money in the world and all the clients in the world. And that's Rena Reiser's quote. And I really appreciate that because, yeah, like we're all, what'd you say?
I got it from a different friend.
From a different friend, right?
Passing it along.
I think it's just so beautiful. Like I don't even really think of like the other people in doing this as like competition, because we're all just trying to share a message. But so yes, reach out to Rena. She's amazing to work with. I could personally attest to that. Okay, so yeah, Esti, I only know like as of like a few days ago, and Yaffi I know for a bunch of years. So so I'll start with Esti. I'm looking forward to getting to know you more, but I would say that the first thing that like popped out at me when we were talking, not today, was like what you said, you're like a self-care enthusiast, and that's like one of my passions. And I think like it always goes back to like how are we caring for ourselves and how that has a ripple effect. And I think that's really something so important that not like so many people are like honing in on. So it's so important that you could work with Esti to even just implement those things in your life. I also heard like you repeat yourself a lot, saying like, let's just take a moment to like not shame yourself and have empathy and remember that this is coming from a place of like love, and like you want to do what's right by yourself and right by your kids. So that's like really important, because like Yaffi was saying before, maybe some of us dietitians have that reputation of like, you know, being the food police or like not understanding the whole picture. And that's like really, really, really important in this line of work. And I love your practical tips that we've all sort of gained from just in this hour, even in us dietitians, like that. And it sounds like you have sort of like a bag of tricks, so that you understand like people really need like the practical part. So reach out to Esti, she's amazing. And Yaffi, I've known you for so many years, and you're bringing so much like fun and lightness and spunkiness to the nutrition world, and also like just an out of the box thinker. Like I love, if anyone follows you on Instagram, I love watching you cooking with the kids, and like you said, like the kid inside of you playing with the food. Like we all kind of need that in our lives, you know, someone to remind us that we're really a kid at heart, and like we can make things fun. It doesn't always have to be scary, but at the same time, Yaffi is like probably one of the smartest people I know. Everyone's always asking her like the medical nutrition therapy questions. Like that's also really important. So like coupling those two, you should for sure reach out to Yaffi and work with her. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, yay. Thank you, ladies. All right, so now you feel free to say where people can contact you and all that. Who wants to start?
Hi, this was really nice. Like my cheeks hurt. I'm on Facebook at Baby Bloom Nutrition and and Toddler Test kitchen_AZ, and on Instagram at toddler.testkitchen. And you can also email me, Yaffi at babybloom. Sorry, Yaffi at babybloomnutrition. And yeah, on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Thank you, Yaffi.
Okay, I'll go next, I guess. Okay, so you guys can find me at Instagram, gila.glassberg.intuitiverd. I also have a podcast called Get Into It with Gila. That was my husband's idea, get into it. I have a YouTube channel also. Most of my podcasts are on YouTube, and you could check out my website, www.gilaglassberg.com. I have a lot of podcasts and YouTube videos there, but I also have a blog there where I share a lot of my ideas, some professional, some personal. So you can email me also at just my name, Gila Glassberg at yahoo.com.
And I also want to reiterate, I think Rina's amazing, personally and professionally. She's really just incredible. If you're interested to learn more about me or to reach out, I have a website. It's Esti, E-S-T-I, estiashernutrition.com. You can contact me through WhatsApp or a contact form there, or you can email me directly at esti@estiashernutrition.com. Thanks so much. This has been really, really amazing. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I forgot to mention
Right.
my podcast and my YouTube channel. It's Naptime Nutrition, both of them.
Amazing. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here and for sharing all of your wisdom with us. I am sure that this is going to make a really big difference in Jewish women's Purim and life in general, because let's face it, this isn't just about Purim. One of you mentioned, like, maybe it was you, Yaffi, that said there's Purim and there's Yontif. Like, it's not really just the one day a year. There's so many days where there's so much food. Our religion is surrounded by food. And so hopefully you'll be able to take some of these ideas with you and integrate them into your life. And of course, you can reach out to these amazing resources, these amazing ladies, for any further guidance on anything that you need with nutrition related and food related, healing your relationship with food. So thank you all so much for being here. And I wish everybody a Freilichen Purim, a day where you can really feel Hashem's closeness and connecting with him and with your family members and your loved ones. And be well. Take care.